Hi, Steve Stine here from lessonface.com, and I wanted to keep going here. This month we're going to take last month's topic of discussion and the month before, and we're going to start combining all of that together. So we're moving from the pentatonic expansions into a full-fledged major scale, and then eventually here we're going to start learning the theory behind everything. So what I want you to work on this week is this shape. And what I'm playing right there is what we call the C major scale. If you look at it, I'm going to play 7 notes. And then the root. Now, when I first started learning how to play, I did not learn this spread fingering shape. I learned what we used to call the box positions, where you would play something like this. And I always wondered how players got fast, and it just seemed very awkward to me. So when I started learning how to play the spread fingering, it made a lot more sense to me because, number one, it's very symmetrical. If you look at it, if I break down the groupings, if you look at the first 2 strings, you'll notice they're the same shape. And then the next 2 strings, same shape, and then the next 2 strings. So visually, it was a lot easier for me to memorize. That's the first thing that's really important about memorizing the major scale in a spread fingering, is that it just makes it easier to visualize as you're playing. So when you're moving around, it just seems a lot smoother and a lot easier to play. The other thing that's nice about it is each string now has 3 notes on it. So you're not shifting from 3 notes to 2 notes to whatever. You're just playing the same picking pattern over and over and over. So if you think about it, the way you pick this, anyway, in my perspective, you would go down, up, and then up, down, up on the next string. Now, there's a whole host of different ways that you can pick these strings, and there's no right or wrong answer to it. But for me, I just keep the pick constant, so it's just alternate picking. So I'm playing down, up, up, down, up. And then the next 2 strings are the same thing. And the next 2 strings, again, are the same thing. So again, it was just really, it was a lot easier for me to play, not only because it was symmetrical, but it made sense with my right hand. Okay? And the third reason why it's really awesome is as you start exploring your theory, you now can visually see all of the intervals mapped out in front of you. You've got your root, your second, your third, your fourth, your fifth, your sixth, and your seventh, your major seventh right there. So let's say you wanted to explore the sounds of a root, a third, and a fifth. Well, you could just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, obviously, there's a whole number of different ways that you can do that across the fretboard. But this month, what I want you to focus on is just thinking about that in this one position. So when people use terms like a sixth, for instance, well, now you can visualize 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can see that sixth out there. Or if you wanted a fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4. So after a while, you start getting comfortable with the fact that, oh, well, if I'm on a root, my fourth is underneath me. Or if I'm on the root, the fifth is 2 frets higher on the 5th string, or however you want to visualize it. But it's also nice because as you start learning more about, we started with pentatonic expansion concept of adding the 4th and the 7th, which are right here now. And when we do that, we actually ultimately wind up with this major scale. It's a pentatonic scale with the 4th and 7th added. But now you can really start thinking about whether or not you'd want to start emphasizing some of those pitches within the context of your soloing. So let's say we've got a C here, and we've got a C right here. So we're playing over a C chord, and we know that the root, third, fifth is going to sound comfortable. It's going to fit. It's the other notes around it, though, that you really want to start exploring because those are the ones that's going to start giving you a lot more color sound. So the cool thing about it is as you're playing, you can start thinking about some of those other notes. You can see the root, third, and fifth, but obviously on the other side of that, you can also see the second, the fourth, and the sixth, right? So, see? So the nice thing is instead of just playing it as a scale, which you certainly can do and should, you can also see the notes and then the alternate notes kind of, highlighted. So as you're playing your root, third, fifth, those are your safe zones. You've also got your second, your fourth, and your sixth, and even your seventh up here. And that's where you start playing more what people refer to as intervallic playing, where instead of just going up and down a scale, you can start thinking about your movements a little more. And get some really interesting sounds with your guitar. Because remember, the first thing that we always do and need to do is memorize concepts on our fretboard. But the next step is really the hardest step after that, which is trying to take all of these concepts that we're learning and start actually trying to make music with them. So not only are you going to memorize this shape this month, and the subsequent shapes that will connect to it, we'll add those as well, if you've got time to memorize those. But I want you to explore this over, say, a C major jam track, where you're thinking about just playing the root, third, fifth, because now you can see those nice and easy on these first strings here. So the chord's being played. And those will fit nice, but I want you to really start exploring the sounds of the other notes. So you can always go to a root, third, or fifth to kind of, close the phrase that you're playing. But you can certainly use those notes outside there. Those are the color notes. We really need those. Okay, so check that out and explore that and see where you get with that. The next thing I want you to do, so we can kind of clear out the rest of the strings, I want you to memorize your notes on the third string. So we're going to get that one out of the way. We've got the first, the sixth, the fifth, and the fourth strings. Let's go ahead and add in the third string. So the third string is G. So A would be at the second fret, okay, right underneath the E on the fourth string. So again, we're using those dots like we've been doing the whole time. But as we keep going down the guitar this way, there keeps being more issues with the dots. So we're memorizing not only on the dots, but away from those as well. So we've got G open, we've got A at the second fret, we've got B at the fourth fret. Now we can get back on the dots. C, D, E, and then F and G. Okay? So you have to remember G, A, and B. G is 0, A is 2, B is 4. But then you can get back on the dots for C, D, and E, and then F and G. And then again, remember, you want to cross-reference those notes on the third string with all your other strings. So as you keep going through this, you're not only memorizing the notes on each individual string, but you're reinforcing the idea of how you're finding all of those notes throughout your entire fretboard on all the strings. So it's a lot to think about. But it's really going to start expanding your playing. So we started with the whole pentatonic concept and how we could combine major and minor pentatonics and all that sort of thing. And now what we're doing is we're streamlining our theory, our visualization away from the pentatonic. We just saw how it expanded a couple months ago. We saw how it expanded by adding in a couple of half steps. And now we're moving into a full-blown C major or major scale concept. Now, this major scale, of course, just like everything else, is movable. If you wanted to play in G major, you would simply move down to the third fret and play that same scale shape. If you wanted to play in A major, you'd move to the fifth fret and play the same thing. And again, the root, third, fifth, and everything else is going to exist exactly where it did before. So it's a really great thing to start exploring, okay? So you've got all your pentatonic stuff. You've got your pentatonic major and minor that we're looking at. We've got our expansions, and now what we're doing is we're moving into the C major scale. So take a look at that, memorize your notes, and I'll see you next month.